Yeah, like I don't know how you feel about it too, but sometimes being like freelancing, even like a lot of your current friends wouldn't really understand like what you do. I found that to be the hardest part with like my friends that are in 9 to 5, so they don't understand like the gig economy or even like that freelancing in the creative field can be lucrative. I think I had some friends that were very had a hard time grasping that, and I think that makes it important to find people that are in your position so that they understand, like you have someone that understands your position to talk about stuff with.
Yeah, it's weird to some people that you can pull in their whole month's salary in one gig and then not have any work for 3 weeks. And you're like, how do I relate to any of these people? Because they're either like mad that I made so much money at once, or just like have no concept of like the fact that you're not working for 3 weeks or like not working for 3 weeks, you're building portfolio or whatever else you're doing in that time. And they're like complaining that they're going to work and that you're not. And it's like, it's just a totally different world. How do young men like us optimize our lives in a way that lets us achieve success and meaning? Come with me as I interview top performers and delve into key areas of life: habits, finance, psychology, health, relationships, work, creativity, and business. I boil the ocean of men's advice into usable wisdom in this podcast to give you the answers. My name is Blake Bottrell, and this is the Distilled Podcast. All right, Francis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to sort of kind of get started here, and this will be a little less formal for anybody listening than a couple of the previous ones here, but we go back probably 2018, I guess, was when we sort of became friends.
Yep. And when was the Alberta trip? Sorry about that. I cut you off there.
No, you're good. Alberta was 2020, right? Because we were worried about getting cut off from crazy year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 2018 because that's when I got back from Thailand and then started getting into all the creator stuff here. So like, what's your... I remember my like foray into trying to find creative friends, and it was hilarious that I remember DMing like hundreds of people on Instagram just asking to be friends or like shoot. What's your experience been with sort of finding the creative people that you've meshed in with now?
I mean, like there's so many different type of people, right? Like it just like some you'll mesh with, some you won't. It just kind of comes with the field, especially as I think it becomes work. I think you have to distinguish like who are your friends and who are your work friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think my process has never really been like reach out to as many people as possible. But I think it was more so like I don't know. I just did my stuff that what I enjoyed doing, and people just kind of flocked towards that, I think. And then people loved to create and just had that drive to create, kind of wanted to work together, and that's kind of like how I found my friends. And like friends of friends is like, hey, my friend does photography. Do you mind? You guys should connect and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't quite remember how we met.
I don't have a recollection of that exact. I think, I don't know. I could probably go back in my Instagram.
Hey, I feel like it's too much work.
Part of that, but no, I feel that it was definitely one of those things where, like I said, I had that shotgun approach at first, and then you realize you find a couple people that you really sort of gel with, and then sort of stick with those and build together. And it's very similar to sort of the entrepreneurial world that I'm in now. Freelancing isn't a whole lot different in that, like, it's sort of a little bit lonely if you don't have the people around you that are sort of doing the same thing. So I feel like finding some of those people are like super critical, especially early on. Finding people that you mesh with and being able to build stuff together is really what keeps you going, right?
Yeah, like I don't know how you feel about it too, but sometimes being like freelancing, a lot of even like a lot of your current friends wouldn't really understand like what you do.
Yeah.
I found that to be the hardest part with like my friends that are in 9 to 5. So they don't understand like the gig economy or even like that freelancing in the creative field can be lucrative.
Yeah.
I think I think I had some friends that were very had a hard time grasping that. And I think that makes it important to find people that are in your position so that they understand, like you have someone that understands your position to talk about stuff with.
Yeah, it's weird to some people that you can pull in their whole month's salary in one gig
Yeah,
and then not have any work for 3 weeks.
yeah,
And
it's
you're like, how do I relate to any of these people? Because they're either like mad that I made so much money at once or just like have no concept of like
yeah,
the fact that you're not working for 3 weeks and or like not working for 3 weeks, you're building portfolio or whatever else
yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing in
yeah,
that time, and they're like complaining that they're going to work and that you're not, and it's like
yeah,
it's just a
yeah,
totally different world.
yeah. I think
And
in the grand scheme of things, I do a lot more work than most nine to
yeah,
fives.
yeah,
But I'm trying to find that
that's
balance.
that's the life of any freelancer or entrepreneur
Yeah.
anyways, right? You're like, I'm gonna freelance so that I don't have to work as much, and then you're like, no, actually I'm just working all the
Yep.
time.
Every single day, every single hour. Dead
Yeah.
inside, but keep pushing.
So I don't know how much you want to get into or can get into exactly what you're working on now, but I know we talked a little bit the last few weeks
Yep.
about a couple of fun things that you've been working on. We talked briefly just before we started here about just sort of finding your niche and moving from, you sort of started with, I guess I shouldn't say that I know that you started with sort of like models and weddings and sort of people's general foray into photography and videography and that sort of stuff, and then have now realized you enjoy the work much more on the agency side, and mentioned a little bit about sports. And so where has that progression, and can you give me like a little bit of insight on how you feel the niche finding has been going, and why it's important to sort of like experiment with things all the way through?
Well, I think niche finding is one of those things that always evolves as you get improved in what you do and as you experience different type of work, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, I started off doing weddings because at the time that was probably the most lucrative and probably easiest entry. Um, I hope the wedding photographers don't see this and just murder me, but yeah, it's just like it is. I think was the for me anyway was the easiest entry and easiest way for me to dip my toes into um, marketing myself and making sure it's profitable and stuff like that, and being able to survive and pay my bills and so on. I still take on
Yeah.
weddings. I am more selective about them now than I was
Yeah.
like a couple years ago, where I was like full on weddings shooting like 30, 35. Now I try to limit myself at 10 or 15 because last year I would have had an opportunity to shoot like a project that I would have dreamt of shooting, like as a I wouldn't have been a cam op, but I would have been worked on set, would have had an IMDb credit and stuff like that, which is kind of
Yeah.
which would have helped my career along. But because I had taken on so many weddings, like it wasn't a job that I could take.
Yeah.
So that's when I learned that like if I take on too many, then there's too much opportunity cost for me to be not be able to push into things that I actually want to do in the long term.
Yeah.
Um, Having said that, I don't think there's any shame of doing weddings. I think some people do like genuinely love them, enjoy them, and that's all they want to do. And like for me, it's there are some that makes me feel like this was awesome, but in most cases to me, like they're all kind of very similar. They're all the same to me.
Yeah.
Um, they are very highly predictable. I think that comes with experience too. Is like you just know exactly what's going to happen and stuff. And so that's when I kind of dive into like how I try to find my niche. I always loved sports, and I was lucky enough that my a friend of mine who's also a DP, that he started bringing me on to shoot with like Toronto Maple Leafs and stuff like that, and I realized this is what I want to do. Um, and like that may evolve into something else as well, but
Yeah.
I think my what I really wanted to do was having control of space and narrative of the thing that I'm shooting at that moment, and so that's why I wanted to get into the commercial space.
Yeah.
Um, so right now, what I'm trying to do now is really finding out um, how can I learn to become a better storyteller in terms of commercial narrative,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough when you're doing weddings and the narrative is exactly the same
yeah,
over and over and over again. It's hard to get better at storytelling in unique ways if you know the beginning, middle of and end of every story.
yeah,
So having somewhere where you can do the storytelling and shape what's happening yourself, I can understand the fulfillment factor there.
yeah.
Is there a wedding story where you're like, oh no, this isn't going to work out?
Um, of course, I think everybody. I mean, I don't think I've had a wedding that didn't work out because I do like talk to them and make sure the vibe is right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I've seconded weddings where like there were actually the groom was the trouble of that wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, I was seconding for a friend of mine, and he literally went up to her and said, "My shoes are worth more than these photos. Like, hurry this up." I mean, at that point, I would have left, but it wasn't my wedding, so I mean, we
Oh
powered
boy.
through. But there's stuff like that. Like, not everybody appreciates what you do. I think that's why it's so important to have that first meeting. It's not
Yeah.
all about like how much they're willing to pay you. It's about like if you guys vibe.
Yeah.
I think
Do
that's
these
what's more
people align
important.
with my
Yeah,
values?
yeah, and like
Yeah.
there's a lady right now actually that's inquiring for her wedding, and she literally asked everybody, and we are all talking about it right now. Um,
In the behind the scenes cabal
yeah,
of Hamilton wedding
yeah.
photographers.
She's not even from Hamilton. She's from like Toronto slash like Florida, and yeah, like my friend goes like, "Yo, I might have a wedding for you." I'm going like, "Oh, I think I might know who it is." And then it was that lady, and then I asked my other friends, and yeah, she's inquired with every single one of us, so we are all going like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I don't know if you want to take this." And like it's okay to have like a. So what I ended up telling her was, because like one of the thing that she asked me was, can you do it like this? And I said, no, you should just go hire that person that would do something like this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Don't.
yeah, like this isn't my vibe. Like I know that. So like basically, she sent me a work of someone that would charge like 15K a wedding, and
Yeah.
then expected to pay like one third or maybe
Yeah.
less. But
Yeah.
I know who that is, so I'm going like, well, that's a friend of mine. You should go ask. And it's like, oh, we actually already inquired. I'm like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I
There's
don't
a
know.
reason.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's just like I'm still trying to find that exact thing that I want to really stay and be really perfect at.
Yeah.
But I think this year is that the stepping year where I try to experience as much as possible in terms of like discovering that niche that I want to stay in.
Do you see yourself more in like a DP role or like a?
It's looking like direction right now,
Okay,
rather than
that's fun.
DP. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I have a knack for planning shoots,
Storytelling and
and yeah,
direction. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think I'm the best shooter. I actually have other friends that are actually more suited for that job. So I actually usually what I do it would be hiring out people that can accomplish what I'm looking for. Having said that, like
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty decent cam op. It's just like if I can focus on getting that storytelling and
Yeah.
having
Where can your
someone else,
skills be best
yeah,
used?
exactly. And I think as you grow, you have to kind of um, have a really distinct role. You can't do everything on your own.
No, of course.
And I think that's where a lot of freelancers burn out is because I think in the lower end, the clients don't want to pay, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and what happens is you end up putting so much on yourself, you don't have time to really tell a proper story. I mean, some stories are just naturally interesting, so like
Yeah.
you can do it, but that just isn't the case for every job.
Yeah, of course. I think the storytelling has always been sort of my favorite part too. Like the shooting and the camera operation is fun, but then really going back and getting to do the edit, not that you'll be editing necessarily as a director, but getting to form that story in the edit and create things, and like that always came through in your video stuff as well. So
Yeah,
I think that's, yeah, getting to sort of express that and build on that
yeah,
is
yeah.
definitely exciting.
You can tell my camera came up because my camera is tilted for 35 degrees right now. It's not perfectly level. It
It's all
is
good.
what it is.
Fix it in
Fix it in
post.
post.
That's the life. Yeah, so like getting away from sort of the wedding life into the agency life. Is there a world where um, you're excited to be any sort of entrepreneur with this, or are you more leaning towards working in an agency setting and working with
I, 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 I
some
wouldn't
established
say
people? Or
I wouldn't say like I'm fully diving into like just agencies. Like
yeah,
agencies are one facet of like different people that I want to work with.
yeah,
Because like agencies do produce bigger budget like commercials and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I've always been called in to work on those. So that's kind of like why I said yeah, I do some agency work. But I think overall goal for me right now is to have a consistent team
yeah,
to produce with is kind of like my goal at the moment. And like it's a work in progress and finding right
yeah,
people for it and people that you vibe with and people you can work with without like wanting to kill each other, I think is kind of the
yeah.
hardest part, but yeah, it's getting there.
Tough in a group of creatives where everybody's got a little bit of their own idea of how this should
Exactly.
be done and that should be done.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think everyone should have an input, but it's
Yeah,
I think the problem becomes if one person isn't is has too much ego and doesn't want to listen. So I think that's why before every shoot it's important to set a designator role because
yeah,
you do need that hierarchy. You do need that one person that leads it and have taken all those suggestions into consideration, and but you need to have a direction.
someone's got to be the top of the filter
Exactly,
and
yeah,
make the final decision. It
yeah,
can't be like a matrix or a web of we're doing this and we're doing that, because
yeah,
then
yeah.
the story doesn't get told right,
No,
and
no, not at all.
everybody comes out of things unhappy. So
Yeah,
yeah, I vibe with that for sure. The sort of like, we touched on it a little bit, but I don't think people quite realize how, or like, I guess on social media it gets sold a lot that like freelancing or like entrepreneurship is this like glamorous lifestyle of like being able to do whatever you
yeah,
want whenever you want, when in the reality is that we mentioned that it's like you really just work all the time,
yeah,
and people think they're going to be able to do this on a random Tuesday and like just take a week off, and like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
never the case. Can you like speak a little bit to your experience of like, because you've been freelancing this whole time, you never really
The past three
took
years,
it
I think.
upon your,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, took it
Um,
upon yourself.
well, I definitely don't think it's glamorous. Like I had this argument with a buddy of mine who's he's an art director. He works 9 to 5 at a like a pretty big
Yeah,
agency. Has a steady paycheck coming in, and basically our argument was that being a freelancer is a life of anxiety.
yeah,
Where like there will be months where you go on without doing any job, and you go like, okay, like what is happening? Like, so I think like first half of this year, it wasn't just me. It was like majority of freelancers in Hamilton and like some in Toronto as well. Because all the projects were getting shut down, companies weren't liquid. So basically, um, all these so basically like all of us were going like, yo, like are you like what are you doing? Like are you still getting calls for jobs? Like what's going on? Like I haven't had any inquiries in like 3 months and all that stuff. Um and but he felt like, oh, but you get to control your own hours, you get paid more, you get paid your worth and stuff like that. But it doesn't really work like that. Like because more times than not you won't be paid your worth, especially on the lower end. Um and even in the mid range, I think you get lowballed all the time. So it's just like so we had that argument. It's like I just don't think you understand that like freelancing isn't easy. Like it's been like a long time that you freelanced. Like I don't think you understand like how even like you have to deal with market saturation. You have to mark and then you have to deal with clients telling you this is what I'm expecting. Like and they have a clear unrealistic expectation for what they pay. I had a job actually recently that I did some work for Fortinos. And the agency that I worked through wanted me to shoot a full commercial for Fortinos for $2,000, and I just said that's not doable. Th
You mean this commercial that they're going to spend like several $100,000 to put on
yeah,
air? You want me to shoot for 2 grand?
two grand, and
I don't know
I
about
just
that
said no,
one.
this is not how it works. I can't produce like a full YouTube pre-roll for $2,000. While like if you look at like Sobeys and their budget will be at like 500, $1 million, and I'm just going like, what do you want me
Yeah.
to do with $2,000?
It's the meme of like $50 client,
Yeah, yeah,
like I need this and this and this and this and that, and it needs to be done by this time and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And then it's like $50,000 client. It's like, okay, where am I wiring this money to?
yeah, yeah. It was rough, man. Like, and then obviously like it that was it. Like I didn't work with them anymore, and they've since
Yeah,
gone defunct, that agency.
I can't
Uh,
imagine why.
yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like they undercut every other agency to get that job, and then they didn't realize how much things cost and how much things like how things worked. And they, yeah, and I'm glad that only worked maybe once or twice with them, and then that was it. It's just like, yeah, that was tough. The accounts guy was pretty good. Like he was a good guy, and he
Yeah,
understood that the position that I was in. But
yeah.
and it was really funny because they went to a buddy of mine to get a quote, and my buddy also said it's like, yeah, no, that's gonna cost at least 20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like freelancing is you have to take on a lot to yourself. Like you have to be able to do your admin, you have to be your own accountant.
You have to
And
be your own marketer.
yeah, you have to do everything, and you have to go you have to unless you're represented. Like I think on a higher end, like a lot of DPs and all these creatives get represented. And once you're represented, like things kind of just work out for you. Um, but getting there is the hardest part. Is getting a representation from like a representation agency.
Yeah.
But once it's same with like YouTubers and stuff like that. Like YouTubers have a really hard life until they're represented, and then they get that sponsorship money. I actually just shot a YouTuber's wedding, and I'm pretty sure he made money off his wedding. Everything was sponsorship, sponsorship, sponsorship. Sponsored by Heineken. Sponsored by Henry
Classic.
Rosen. It's crazy.
Get to a point in your life where you can just literally make money for doing the things that you have to do
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah,
That's where
yeah,
the goal is.
yeah. They had a great
Oh
time.
man. Getting into like the anxiety angle a little bit there. I know it's like been beaten to death with a giant wooden stick at this point, but it just feels like so much of this, especially going back to like points on the gig economy and like everything is just like where breaking down to like scratch and claw for a paycheck, and nobody has money anymore, and everything's been inflated to hell. Like,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about like the mindset of that, not necessarily financial struggle, because I don't know that you're ever really been scraping by, but like talk to me about the mindset of not having that confirmed paycheck, and how that sort of plays on the mental a little bit.
Luckily, I'm pretty decent at budgeting. Like I come from more accounting background. So I was able to save a lot, and like bracing for winter and stuff like that, especially for this year. And plus like investments and stuff like that. But I feel a lot of photographers and freelancers aren't in that, so they go out to eat a lot, they go out to do like whatever, and they end up putting themselves in a bad spot where they go like, oh shit, where did all my money go? I don't have any jobs coming in because like in winter, like depending on your industry you're in, the job does stop coming. Um, so it's just like and like I hear like this is same for me because I get anxious even if I do have like financial stability. If I don't have anything coming in to replace what I'm spending, I do get extremely stressed and I go like, wait, what is happening? So that was the first half of this year.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just like learning to how to deal with that has been something that's of a learning process. And I don't know if I'll ever get over it personally, but I don't know how other creatives do it. Because I know for a fact like some people aren't as good at saving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Do you think the sort of connections that you've made with some of your other creative friends are maybe a little bit deeper than some of, not necessarily uh, degrading the other sort of friendships that you have, but is there like a level of connection with some of the other creatives in your life where you're like, okay, this person understands me, and like our friendship is deeper for that?
yeah, for sure. 100%. I have some friends that understand me, like what I'm going through in terms of my life or my work life, and they understand it. Like I'd say like a lot of strain came from my like university friends that went into like a typical STEM, typical like
Yeah.
9 to 5 guys, um like they I think I had a conversation about them with about paying taxes, like how like a terrible of a time it is, like just losing
When
a
you've got to
lump
pay
sum.
20
Yeah,
grand in taxes at the
yeah,
end of the
yeah,
year.
at least. And it's not a good time. And they didn't understand it. It's like, oh, we all pay taxes. I'm going, yeah, but it's different when it doesn't come out monthly and then you just have to pay
Yeah.
it in lump sum or through installments. Um, and like generally people generally don't understand like how hard it can be because on Instagram you only see like how much fun I'm having. You don't
Yeah.
see the negative side of like oh man, like I'm stressed out, I'm burnt out, like this and this. I spent the whole day today like looking for where am I gonna like go to in this winter in November. I might go to Korea, I don't know, I haven't fully decided yet. But it comes to a point where I'm like dreaming about, oh, I should just like have a vacation somewhere. But like I know that I'm not gonna take it too because there are my jobs that might come in at that time. So right now I'm trying to learn that boundary for myself. It's like when do I take a break?
Are you like travel for culture or travel for nature kind of person?
Both, a little bit of both,
Both.
depending on where.
Yeah.
Like Iceland would be nature, like because
Yeah.
it depends on how you define culture too, right? Like
Yeah.
if it's just like food and stuff like that, um, culture for sure. But I generally love mountains, deserts, like unique. You know this, you know this. Like
Yeah.
I really loved my Utah trip that I went recently. Um, and yeah, like I and yeah, I would say like it's a little bit of both, but depending on where I go.
I think
Yeah.
I've always been a like travel for nature kind of person.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
culture is just like a side benefit of like
Yeah.
meeting all these cool people or like
Yeah.
seeing all these cool interactions of what's happening or eating good food or like you're saying.
Yeah.
But like the reason I go to places is always primarily for like, oh my God, this waterfall is huge, or like
Yeah.
we can climb up this mountain, or
Yeah.
like this water's so blue. Like it's
I
just
feel that. Yeah.
I feel like there's so much. I feel like I've been going down this tangent for a while in the last couple of months of just like one, people don't understand how small they are in the world and like the immense amount of beauty that exists even possibly like 45 minutes down the road from you that you've just never gone to see.
Yeah.
And then the idea that if people traveled to like Southeast Asia or like China or somewhere with a significantly lower GDP than where they live now, they would have an entirely different perspective on the life that they lived.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have anything to compare it to. And they end up in this situation where like they're literally making up problems to make their life harder because they don't have any challenges. And there's people in Africa living in mud huts and walking 7 miles every day to get water.
And that's where our Western importance comes from, right? Like North American importance. West centrism, is that what it's called?
I don't know. That's I'll
it's like
have
where
to
we
look
think
into it.
where we think we know the best.
Yeah.
Our
The
way is the
crusades
best.
to bring democracy to the entire
sir.
Middle East.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's going well.
We could go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, it's really not going well. They're gonna send another $24 billion to Ukraine next week, I think. So Francis's camera just died, but we're getting back into the idea that he mentioned that he was almost bought a camera for fun today that was like 10 grand. And I was like, yeah, you get to charge for the camera rental too now, right? And then just people really don't understand the what freelancing is, and you're not paying for the hours that the freelancer is on site. You're paying for the years of experience they have, and you're paying for all of the camera gear that they own and like all of the hours spent editing this thing. And people just look at the hourly rate that you're charging and they're like, why are you charging me so much money? And it's never that simple.
If it's like a 1 hour shoot, I probably spend about 4 hours on it at least. 4 or 5 hours.
Are you just on the personal side of things, do you think you enjoy photography or videography more?
Depends
from
on what
like
I'm
a
shooting.
storytelling angle?
Videography for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's more to tell. For weddings photos, but for everything else, I think video is there's a lot more story to tell, and then it's something that I think there's more room to improve in video. And I think
there's
only so much you can learn in photos, I think. But I think video kind of opens up different way to tell stories. And I think like for me, there's no like some people believe that there's a certain way that you should do certain things, I think. But I think what I loved about the video is that, I mean, of course, you can't be Cloverfield everywhere you go, but you have to do it to the feel of what you're shooting at that moment. But it's I think I love that freedom to be able to do that in video.
I've seen you shoot everything from the style of what I'll just call Daniel Schiffer all the way to Wes Anderson.
Daniel Schiffer. Man, I got shat on so hard for that video back in the day. Oh man, people hate it. It's like, oh, you're copying Daniel Schiffer. I'm like, yo, someone else did this before Daniel Schiffer.
Listen, there is nothing new in the world here. Everybody steals like an artist, and you take inspiration in bits and pieces from everybody, and if you like it and it resonates with you, that's what you do.
Everything's been done.
Yeah. What was I going through today when I was exploring that idea? It popped into my head for some reason. That same concept popped into my head earlier today when I don't know if I was writing something or just something for work, but it's nothing. There are no new original ideas, and you're just changing the packaging.
Yeah.
So as long as you can convey why your packaging is the best or at least deserves some spotlight, like you're going to be fine.
I think there's a quote, if you're like scared to copy, then you create nothing. And I actually felt this with a friend of mine. She's a creator slash like an influencer. Um, and she had this like idea. There's a guy in Toronto doing it, and like she was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing it, but I don't want to do exact copy." But I said, "You're not really copying. You're just doing it in a different way here. Like, so you're in a different environment. It's not a copy. You should just do it." Um, Eventually, someone else did it, so she got discouraged. It's like, "Oh, now like someone else did it. It's too late." I'm like, "Well, it's not too late. You can still do it." Um, but to her,
There's no deadlines.
no. It's a creative space. No one cares. In the long run, no one. I literally think no one cares. If someone gets mad, someone gets mad. Who cares?
Yeah,
Like,
and the timeline of how long a post lasts on social media now is so minuscule in
yeah,
the grand scheme of anything.
yeah.
It's like I literally wrote the newsletter about this week. It's called the Lindy Effect, and the concept is that um, the length of time that something has existed is directly proportional to the amount of time that it will continue to exist into the future.
Hmm.
So it's like if a book has been in print for 40 years, you can be relatively assured that it's going to be in print for another 40
Yeah,
years. But the amount of things that we consume now are just like so perpetually now on like social media of like, this was created in the last 24
yeah,
hours
yeah,
and you will
yeah,
not remember it 3 seconds after you scroll past it.
yeah.
So it's like, make whatever you want, make the stuff that makes you happy. And then like
That's exactly it.
people
Yeah,
might remember it, or 3 seconds later, like ultimately I fuck. I go back and forth on the whole Instagram deleting likes thing. In a way, there was definitely some good to it in that, like, it just probably made people create a little bit more of what they wanted.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't know. It's so hard, man. That balance of like audience capture and making the stuff you want to, and it's a tough conversation.
Yeah, I just learned to just kind of, I don't really care. I love making this, and I'm just gonna post it. Because like with Reels, it's always tough because if you don't hit the algorithm, like it just doesn't get traction, right? Like no matter how beautiful something that you made might be, at the end of the day, if it doesn't hit that algorithm, like it's not gonna go anywhere. So you just kind of have to accept, like it's not about the likes, it's about the process that you've enjoyed. But I think that our modern world doesn't really allow for that, because we live in a constant need for endorphin rushes and um, instant gratifications. And I think that's why people have such a hard time. And I think this goes in like with life too, and not for just for self-employed people, is that they think everything is quick. They think everything has to be done right away. I think social media has like ruined people. I'm glad I didn't get grew up nowadays. Like like if I went to high school nowadays, I would have been just stressed out, living in anxiety all the time.
Yeah, I understand why people are in that world now, and
Yeah,
people are like, why has the aggressive spike in young female anxiety skyrocketed since 2008 when the
yeah,
first iPhone was released and Facebook was like, it's just
yeah,
people don't want to have these conversations and they'd rather live in their bubble and
yeah,
keep
yeah.
scrolling, and but
Well, it's
it's going to
inconvenient,
come to a
right?
head somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's inconvenient. It's the same thing with like all the political talks now too. Is everything is inconvenient when you actually want to
Yeah.
take accountability for it.
Yeah, and I've had this, like, I've asked this of a couple other people, but it's one of those things where it's like, how do we just start having the conversations again? Because people are so even scared to just have the necessary conversations to like get back to what does having a civil discourse actually look like. Everybody's so, and this is greatly in large part to the effect of social media, of fully encamped
Yeah.
people in their own separate world. Fuck, I forget. It was
Are we allowed to
on the
swear here?
modernism podcast that
I've been
yeah,
holding back.
do whatever, do whatever the fuck you want, man. I don't care. But yeah, there was something on Modern Wisdom last week or the week before to the effect of what the actual name of the concept is called, of just entrenchment in their own. I'll remember it 3 hours after we're done recording and I'll text you, but yeah, it's fully sort of bubbled people, and to no fault of their own, they're sort of living in this world that's detached from a reality in a way.
It goes back to our conversation Western centrism too, right? It's like when you live this privilege, you don't understand that some other parts of the world, they have it tough, so you're not able to relate with it. So you just kind of look at our way is the best, and if you don't follow our way, you're wrong, and we're going to shit on you. It's just kind of like I feel like that's been the mindset of modern world, and which if it works for people, it works for people. I just don't have time to deal with it anymore. Yeah, I just don't talk about it.
It's one of those things where you select your friends so that you can have these conversations and continue to care about the things that you need to care about. And if people want to go off and complain in their own little bubble, then they can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever makes you happy or unhappy. Grossly unhappy usually, but
yeah, I mean, you'd have to be at that point if you're mad at everything. Like, that's not a life to live.
And I think part of that too is starting to make, and this is obvious given half of the conversation that we've been having, but I think it's making friendships harder too. And we talked about this like a month ago, of like, it's really hard to like feel like you stay connected, and that's why I'm glad that we kind of reconnected probably a month ago after what had been a few years. And like, I know guys are especially terrible at this, of like, just reach out and say hi to the people that you were are friends with, because everybody else is waiting for everybody else to go first, and someone just wants you to say, hey, let's grab a beer, or let's go for coffee, or whatever it is. But like, guys are notoriously awful for like, oh yeah, I'll see him when I see him, and then we'll catch up at that point. But it's like, no, in a world where everybody's like online all the time and just expecting to live lives through that, it's good to like reconnect in person and have those conversations.
It's also tough as we get older because we have less energy and stuff like that too. That's another big thing. It's like I
have the energy to love my dog and walk for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and then you're done. You're like, I don't have time for anything else right now.
Francis is too busy buried in his edits.
Oh God, you should see my backlog right now. I want to die.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Premiere Pro timeline on your screen right now.
Yeah, funny story. I don't even have Premiere Pro anymore.
No? Are you a DaVinci guy?
Yeah, I'm all DaVinci now.
Ooh, really getting into it.
Yeah, it's way better.
Did you make the switch when Sam Colder made his big stand?
Nope, it was before.
2 years ago?
It was before. I guess it was after, but I don't really watch Sam Colder as much. But I probably made the move like a couple months ago when like Adobe raised their prices again. And go like, I can't afford this. It's like $1,000 a year. Like, no, this is crazy. I already have DaVinci Resolve because I have a Blackmagic. So I'm going like, why don't I just use DaVinci Resolve, and like I'll actually make an effort to learn this. And once I learned it, it was just way better.
I have yet to meet a single person who mentions DaVinci Resolve as not being the best video editing software if you actually take the time to learn how to do it.
Yeah, but
the problem is the learning curve is ridiculous.
Yeah. But once you get it,
every other editing software you can hop in and be like semi-competent in like a weekend. DaVinci Resolve, you're at it for like a month before anything looks like it even came out of a camera.
Honestly, it's the timeline that's the hardest. It's the timeline, like trying to figure out like how to do timeline, I think, is where people lose themselves a lot. And then eventually, I think once you learn the node system, it just makes sense. You get way more control over your colors, and it just levels up your work. It's night and day. And plus, it's like you pay once and you're done. Like it's not a subscription service. It's just way better.
You mean we can do things that aren't subscription services?
Yeah, man. This is 2023. I know, it's rare. Everything's subscription now.
Yeah, I just paid for Baldur's Gate the other day.
Oh, nice.
So we're gonna hop into that. The Mac port hasn't come out yet,
Oh, okay.
so I jumped into the like I bought it. I'm going to play it, but the Mac port doesn't come out for like another month. So I
Okay.
just like hopped in to like try to learn the like basic control
Yeah,
scheme.
yeah, yeah.
And it's gonna be something
I
else,
heard
man. I'm
it's
excited.
amazing.
If you find yourself any downtime, I would
Are you
recommend picking it up.
are you a big D&D guy?
Not like not in that I continuously have a group that I play
Yeah,
with,
yeah, yeah.
but every single time I try to set something up to play, it's always one of my favorites
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
things to do. Like
Yeah.
I I wish it was something that I had carried through for years, and if I ever find myself in the opportunity to put myself into a regular Sunday play group or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, I'd be
You should get
down,
your
but
partner
it's
into it.
that might be a stretch. We'll see.
Oh man, yeah. I had a rogue, level 5 rogue in my last campaign.
Yeah.
His name was Sextus Maximus, and he was known for just
That
like
sounds like a rogue name.
yeah, he just went in and stabbed people. That was his thing.
Murder hobos.
Sneak attack, sneak attack. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Are you one of those dirty min-maxers?
Um, I don't think so. No, no, no. But I am. I had some good quotes. Like actually, I still have some here, but
There you
like
go.
in our group, where we saved them, saved like what we say and stuff like that. If you have like a memorable quote, and but Sextus
Yeah.
has like the best quotes out of everyone. So
I think that was another problem in my play group was that half of the group was entirely dirty min-maxers
yeah,
and then the
yeah.
other half wanted to just play for the vibes. So
Oh,
everything was just like, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I feel that.
really
I feel that.
allegory for life
Yeah, yeah.
of nobody's on the same page, but oh,
Oh. Yeah, I think in the game we were in a tavern and said and I think they said someone's name like the barmaids and I just said like, that sounds like a MILF name. And then like I proceeded to like try to woo the barmaid. It was a good time. It was a good time. I really enjoyed it.
that's half of
Yeah,
what D&D is.
yeah. So I do want to get into Baldur's Gate. I want to try to pick it up or maybe pirate it. I don't know. Depends on how I feel.
Yeah, it's no microtransactions. So, in
Oh,
case
maybe I
anybody
should
is
buy it
wondering how
then.
we got onto this conversation, we were talking about everything as a subscription model, and video games now are notorious for being subscription model
Oh
and or
God,
filled with
yeah.
microtransactions. And Baldur's Gate is one of the only games in recent memory that is launching as a full game with no additional price to pay or in-game transactions or anything like that. So
Do not support Blizzard. Do not give them any money.
there's a handful of reasons to not support Blizzard, but yeah, that's
That's one of
probably
them.
one of them.
Yeah.
What's one thing you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
So this week I'm spending the entire week working on this like a treatment for I think I told you about this. It's like it's a training facility for hockey players that caters to like OHL, NHL, and other professional league players. So right now I'm doing a treatment on like how the shoot's gonna go. I'm It's probably one of my first bigger budget shoots that I pitched and got.
Nice.
That I'm in the process of like doing hiring and stuff like that for at the moment. Um, and yeah, like I think that's probably my favorite project that I'm currently working on. I also have a couple weddings that are coming up that
Yeah.
I guess I'm excited for, but not as much.
Yeah.
One of the weddings I'm working on, they went ham on food, so I'm pretty excited for that.
What's the do you have sort of a story in mind for um this sort of shoot you're working on with the athletes, or is it just sort of generalized shoot and you'll work things out in
No,
the
no. Everything's gonna be planned. So the idea for me is so they have like physiotherapy center and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Ice bath and all that stuff. Like those are good for B-rolls, but I really want it to be like a coherent commercial. So basically, we have a female athlete, we have a male athlete, and I want to tell a story around them.
Nice.
Without getting too deep into it, because I'm not fully done like formulating like the script
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Basically, uh, they're going to tell a story of them like waking up in the morning and kind of like driving towards like their own pursuit of their own careers into that's something makes it sound really boring, but basically the idea is like I want to tell a story behind these two athletes of they are of like different, they have different lives, but they kind of intersect into one, into like
Yeah.
this community of like hockey athletic center is kind of like
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell.
I think people get lost in the amount of storytelling that exists in sports, or like
Yeah.
take it for granted a lot of the times of, and especially because so much of it sometimes comes from like the broadcast announcers and how much people resonate with them, and being able to tell that narrative of this is this player's progression, or like this is where they came from and this is how it ended up and this is what's happened along the way. And I think through the years, Sportsnet or CBC or whoever, just going off of hockey because that's what's in my brain, because that's what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
care
yeah,
about
yeah.
as a
Of
sport.
course, yeah.
And they've been better at telling some of the stories behind the athletes, and it's really cool to get to see some of that behind the scenes stuff. Or you mentioned stuff about the Leafs and all of their like the blueprint stuff that they do behind the scenes on YouTube now. Like I watch every single one of those, and it's like the most fascinating shit ever.
Hmm.
Of like there was one last year where they spent the entire episode and we just learned about, I think it was either the like dietitian or um, like whoever was in charge of like not meal operations, but like nutrition
Yeah, yeah,
and all
yeah.
that sort of stuff, and learning those stories behind the people that you see and who you idolize. I think being one of those people, as you're trying to be, that gets to tell those stories is just absolutely fascinating.
Hmm. I agree. And that's kind of like what I want to tackle in this project, because what I have to tell is that like there's different facet to it. So basically, they want content, obviously, for their short form, and
Yeah,
I'm also delivering the long form would be like the more commercial look, and that's where we're telling
yeah,
a coherent story, and the short form would be more like a blueprint format, more
yeah.
doc kind of feel, documentary, POV almost. Is kind of like what I'm envisioning for it. So yeah, I'm doing that script like this week. Probably be done like next 2 days. I'm almost done actually, and then send it off to client, and they're gonna approve it, and then yeah, that's the plan anyway.
Nice. I'm
Yeah,
excited to see what comes out of it.
yeah. I'll send it to
I
you before I post and stuff like that for it's official.
get the sneak peek.
Yeah,
I'm not in
yeah,
the cabal of Hamilton creatives
yeah. Neither am I.
Telegram
Yeah.
group or Instagram DM group or whatever, but
There's no such thing,
yeah,
my guy, because one going back to like the whole community thing too is like it's it can be quite toxic. It's like not everyone has your best interest in heart. Not everyone has like the um, not everyone's good people. Like we talked about it
yeah.
before. So like I know you talked about there's a Hamilton cabal or whatever, and I think like when I was starting out, like I wanted to be part of that and stuff like that. But as I grew, it limits you because you just stop growing, and you just end up having like and people in there have like a little too much ego, and you just don't, they never grow out of that either. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like so I've never been part of that, I don't think. But I do.
People start
Sure, go ahead.
people people start with the best intentions, and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden one person gets too popular to deal with the
that
rest of
too.
everybody.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
It's not even just that. Like people starting out, I think not everybody has like best intentions to begin with. Um, and that's kind of like what you have to like kind of filter out as you go. But even then it's still tough. Like I I like to think that I'm very careful about who I interact with. Having said that, I give everybody like a chance. Like if someone asks like, hey, like, can you give me an advice? Do you mind meeting up? Like I don't typically charge like, I know some people do. I don't charge like a mentorship rate or whatever it's called, and
Yeah.
meet up to talk shop or whatever. Like I like meeting
Yeah.
people, so I just do it no matter
Yeah.
what. But like I'd say I'm extremely careful of who I bring in to work with me and stuff like that. And I find that a lot of people reach out just for that instead of rather trying to be friends or whatever.
It's like, what can I sort of extract or
Yeah,
take from
yeah,
you? A
yeah,
lot of things just become transactional. And
yeah,
I'm the same way you are in that I do my best. Not that I get reached out to a lot about a bunch of different things, but it's part of the reason why I started sort of this project, is to be a little bit more on the mentor side of things, having talked with a handful of people in my life and their experience on the mentor side versus the mentee side. And I feel like there's just always something that you can learn from anybody.
yeah. I agree.
Whether they're above you, below you, beside you, got 100,000 YouTube subscribers, no YouTube subscribe, like whatever it is that the
Yeah,
metric
yeah,
that you're comparing by, like if you're saying no to things outside of literally not having the time because you're so busy doing other things, like I can't imagine a world where I would say no to an interaction with somebody
yeah,
on the basis of the fact that I don't think I could learn anything from them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Friendships are tough as you get older. I think, especially for men, like you said before, like it becomes really tough for us. I think, and I assume it's the same for women as well. Like it's just everybody. I think as we get older, we become more weary of people. And I'm trying to be better in terms of that. I'm trying to be more optimistic that people are good generally, and yeah, but that's kind of been my approach recently.
I'm on team everybody is good until proven otherwise.
Yeah,
It's
good for you,
bit me in
man.
the butt.
Yeah, yeah,
It's bit me in the butt a couple of times,
yeah,
but I'd
yeah,
rather be on that side than the nihilistic just doomer of
yeah,
everything world.
yeah.
So,
I agree.
man, we've been going for an hour. This is
Yeah, this is going well. I mean, I like to think you're a really good conversationalist. Like you always have like a topic to talk about. Like I've always felt that way. Whenever we had chats, even when we were in Alberta, we would have a political chat, but we never like we would have disagreements, but we never like lashed out, you know? And I think that's what's important
yeah, of
now
course.
is that like people have different opinions, and it's okay to have different opinions. Um, and I think we have to foster that. I think it got really bad for a while, but I think slowly, I think people are coming back, and pendulum wise, I think
Yeah,
majority of people are pretty moderate, if anything, and
yeah,
I think people want that comfort back, being able to
yeah.
connect and talk to people. Yeah,
There's some people that don't, but
no,
those people, like we've already talked about, are pretty miserable in their
yeah,
own little way.
I
But
think
yeah, we
that's the
talked about
minority.
this the last time we got together too, is
Yeah,
like the pendulum's coming back the other way,
yeah, yeah,
and I think people are starting to realize they're in the non-vocal majority and that they can actually say what they want to again,
yeah,
and they're not going to get totally chastised out of every single thing they're a part of,
yeah,
because there
yeah,
was a while there where it was looking kind of dicey. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think we're back to that, and I think one of the Republican primary political candidates said something the other day that I kind of resonated with, and it's like the idea that the health of any society is predicated on people's ability to say what they want out loud as they would in private.
yeah,
And I think we're getting back there, which is
yeah,
pretty healthy.
yeah. I mean, some people are still gonna reject it,
Yeah.
but I think what these people don't understand is like just because you shut people up, it doesn't mean they don't think a certain way. It actually has a negative effect, I think, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, because you just bottle it up and you just shut down the conversation before you can come to some sort of a compromise and agreement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Man, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Should we
Up to you,
call
man.
it there? And
It's up to
we'll have to, I'll definitely have you back on at some point. I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep these two in and around an hour
you. Yeah, yeah.
because I not to say that I don't love the Joe Rogans and Lex Friedmans of the world. I think we had this conversation when we were, like, I'm trying to keep it to around an hour because that seems to be the reasonable consumption length for people versus the 3-hour feature length movie that is a Joe Rogan podcast.
Of course, yeah. And I'm not Post Malone, so it's not. That was a great one. I love. You
don't want to talk about trying to get Joe Rogan to play Magic the Gathering?
I mean,
it's like poker and chess, but there's like 50,000 chess pieces.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This has been a ton of fun, and I'm enjoying this. There's room for structured conversation as well, for sure, but I enjoy this, like, riffing back and forth and having a conversation.
For sure. Yeah.
I don't know that I ever shared with you, but at one point I literally just wanted to start a podcast like 3 or 4 years ago that literally was just called Conversations with My Friends.
You did, actually. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was literally just going to set up a camera and, like, record me having conversations with my friends and see where it goes. But this is a fun sort of, not culmination because it's not going to end here, but like, this is where the roadmap has gone. Maybe that's what we'll call this episode, Conversations with My Friends.
Well, I loved it, man.
But it's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Francis, thank you for joining me, and I will see you soon. We'll be in touch, and have to have you back on at some point soon.
Let's go for coffee sometimes.
Absolutely.
All right, later, dude.